The rhythmic thump of the train's wheels against the tracks was usually a comforting sound for me, but tonight it felt different. I was the last passenger on the midnight train, heading back to my small town after a long shift at the hospital. The flickering lights inside the train carriage did little to ease my growing sense of unease. I glanced at my phone, no signal. Typical. I sighed and looked out the window, watching as the dark countryside zipped past. A dense fog had settled over the land, making everything beyond the glass appear ghostly and surreal. Suddenly, the train screeched to a halt, throwing me forward in my seat. "Attention, passengers." The conductor's voice crackled over the intercom. "We're experiencing some technical difficulties. Please remain seated while we address the issue." I peered around the empty carriage. The silence was deafening. I decided to get up and stretch my legs, maybe find someone to explain what was going on. As I walked towards the front of the train, I noticed something odd. The carriages ahead were completely dark. "Hello," I called out. My voice echoing down the empty corridor. No response. I continued forward, the only sound being my own footsteps and the occasional creak of the train. Then I saw it. A shadow darting across the far end of the carriage. I froze, my heart pounding. "Who's there?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. Again, no response. Summoning all my courage, I moved towards the shadow. As I approached, the temperature dropped noticeably, and I could see my breath in the air. The shadow reappeared, this time closer. It was humanoid but distorted, as if it were made of smoke. "Stay back," I shouted. But the shadow didn't listen. It lunged at me with inhuman speed, and I barely managed to dodge it. I ran back towards my seat, my mind racing. What was that thing? And where was everyone? I reached my carriage and slammed the door shut, trying to catch my breath. I fumbled for my phone, hoping it had regained signal, but it was still useless. I looked around for a weapon and grabbed a metal rod from the emergency kit under my seat. The shadow was at the door now, its smoky form pressing against the glass. I could feel its malevolent presence, a dark energy that seemed to sap my strength. I knew I couldn't stay here. I had to find a way out. I remembered the emergency brake and dashed towards it, yanking it down with all my might. The train lurched violently and I was thrown to the floor. The shadow wailed, a sound so piercing it felt like it was tearing through my soul. The train finally stopped, and I scrambled to my feet. I forced the door open and jumped onto the tracks, my legs shaky but determined. I started running along the tracks, away from the train and the horror within it. As I ran, I could hear the shadow's wail growing fainter, but I knew it wasn't over. I had to keep moving, had to find help. The fog was thicker now, almost suffocating, but I didn't stop. I could see a faint light in the distance, a signal of hope. I reached a small station, abandoned but illuminated. I burst through the doors, collapsing onto the floor. I looked up to see an old man, the station master, staring at me with wide eyes. "Help me," I gasped. "There's something on the train." The old man nodded grimly. "I know," he said. "You're not the first to encounter the shadows beneath." My heart sank. I wasn't safe yet, but I was a survivor, and I would fight these shadows with every ounce of strength I had left.